Toxic Masculinity.
Rose McGowan?
Rose McGowan, yeah.
McGowan. The Democrat Party is a cult.
Yeah, so Rose McGowan, who is a Democrat, is now saying that the Democrat Party is a cult. And never mind the picture from the Associated Press here. That has nothing to do with it, obviously. Rose McGowan was raised in a cult, by the way. And basically, she's starting to recognize finally that the Democrat Party is a cult. Now, she also thinks that the Republican Party is a cult, and she thinks that we're all drinking the Kool-Aid of whatever political party we're in. But here's the thing: like, if you are a Democrat, you're naturally going to hate Republicans. You're naturally going to think Republicans are brainwashed and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be very difficult for you to recognize the problems with your own party, the problems with the Democrat Party. So the fact that she is a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, and she is now recognizing that the Democrats are all, she thinks, also in a cult. I think that's very powerful, despite the fact that, of course, she's wrong about Republicans. Problem with Democrats is a lot of times is they get fed a lot of misinformation about Republicans. So I'd actually love to sit down with Rose McGowan for my show or even just privately and sort of discuss the misperceptions that she might have about Republicans. Like, there's a lot of people who are prone to believing conspiracy theories. I did a video on a guy who had been like a Democrat, then he'd gone and he'd watched a bunch of YouTube videos from the far right, you might call it, and he became this sort of far right guy. Elijah says he didn't get counted in the census. Well, you just had to go online and click the thing. What the heck's wrong with you? Let's see here. So, what the heck was I talking about? The cult stuff, the Democrats, the Republicans. I don't remember. I got lost from that text. I've been waiting for him to text back. He finally texts back, and it's like, it's not helpful to my story. But what was I saying? You don't remember? See, this is the problem with you not listening to me. You got to listen. You got to listen better.
I'm listening.
Okay. Well, anyway. So the point is, she's now recognizing that the Democrats. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would like to sit down with her and talk to her about it, because I think Democrats get fed all this misinformation, like Republicans are racist and all this kind of stuff. And they have this perception of conservatives like, oh, you guys just listen to Trump, or you just listen to, some other like racists, and you believe what they say, and you don't think for yourselves, and you don't consider that black people are human, and you don't consider like that the environment needs to be saved and all this kind of stuff, and you're just in your conservative cult and you believe this stuff. But in reality, all the Republicans that I know are super skeptical of the stuff that politicians are saying, even stuff that's being said by Republican politicians. That's why you'll get a lot of criticism of Republican politicians by Republican voters. You see that all the time. And you do find a lot of different positions amongst people who vote Republican. Libertarians have certain positions. Republicans have certain positions. We disagree about certain things, but we have some fundamental perceptions that we build our political philosophy around, which is why we tend to have a pretty unified political philosophy, even if on certain issues we differ slightly a little bit. But Democrats are a coalition of special interests, right? So you get the environmentalists, you get the LGBT folks, you get the people who want to support Black Lives Matter, and that kind of stuff. You have the feminists, and these different. You have the immigration folks, all these different groups that have these special interests. They don't necessarily agree with one another on, like, do you think that that if you go and you talk to a black activist who's all for the rights of black people and promoting blackness and all that kind of stuff, if you talk to them about the LGBT community or the environment, you think they're going to care? Probably not. Well, yes, but the only reason they care is because that's part of the Democrat platform. So you want to vote for a Democrat and you want to kind of agree with the Democrat because that's what the Democrat leadership is telling you. but they don't actually care about that stuff. Not really. They just say they do because, it's part of the Democrat position. And sometimes these positions go against each other's interests. Like, for instance, LGBT community supports trans rights. Yeah. Feminists support the rights of women. So you got all these feminists who have been for decades trying to get women, like women's sports, to be more accepted in American society, so that women can participate in sports in school, participate in sports on a professional level, and all that kind of stuff. And now you got the trans people saying, "Oh, we're going to put guys in with the women in these women's sports," and all the feminists are going, "Wait, hold on a second." And so this happens a lot in the Democrat Party, where you get these conflicting ideas, but then you get people like Nancy Pelosi who are saying, this is what the truth is. And they're just lying to people blatantly. Get Rachel Maddow, you get the people on CNN, Don Lemon, just blatantly lying to everybody about Trump, about Republicans, about this stuff. And then they all think, okay, maybe we disagree with each other a little bit on these things because, naturally. But the Republicans are so evil that we have to hate them. And so to me, it's like, if you're in a cult, what do cults do? Cults brainwash you. And so they're being brainwashed constantly. I'm actually doing a video on this because there's a new hashtag called BlueAnon on Twitter that's been going about on Twitter. BlueAnon. BlueAnon is our answer to QAnon. They always say, like, Republicans are QAnon conspiracy theorists. Well, we've developed our own term now, BlueAnon conspiracy theories, right? And the big difference between the conservative QAnon concept and the BlueAnon concept of the left is that QAnon is believed, like the craziest QAnon stuff, is believed by a very small fringe group of conservatives. Most conservatives don't believe most of the QAnon stuff. Most conservatives aren't even aware of most of the QAnon stuff. But the Democrat BlueAnon conspiracy stuff, that's like mainstream Democrat thought, like the idea of the Russian collusion stuff. That was a hoax. That was false. That was fake news. That was a conspiracy theory. That was on CNN every night. That was on MSNBC every night. That's mainstream Democrat views, is conspiracy theories, right?
Some of their views that they did it for ratings. They admitted that.
I'm not talking about the reporters. I'm talking about the voters. The voters listen to the CNN political pundits. Well, they listen to the reporters, the so-called journalists on that network, and they believe what they tell them. Nancy Pelosi spreads this disinformation because it helps her politically. CNN spreads the disinformation because it helps their ratings. It also helps their political party that they're part of. And then the unfortunate victims are the voters, the Democrat voters who believe this nonsense. And, they're just so, the Kavanaugh was a sexual predator at 13 because this girl he pushed on a bed once thought she was going to be raped, even though he doesn't even remember what the hell she's talking about from when he was 13. And of course, she wasn't actually raped, which is the even bigger, which I always thought was so weird, is like they're pushing this theory that some boy pushed a girl onto a bed and she was scared and he ran off. And 40 years later, he can't be a Supreme Court justice because she had this weird memory. Such a bizarre thing. But anyway, so there's all this conspiracy theory stuff coming out of the left, but it's coming out of the mainstream left, and it's being pumped into the brains of these Democrat voters every single night, every single day, for years. And but what Rose McGowan thinks is that this happens on the right as well, and she's just wrong. Certainly conservatives do watch the news, and they do listen to certain political pundits, and people do watch my show. But we always tell everybody, go listen to the other side. Go listen to other people. Go think for yourself about this sort of thing. Go have discussions. Conservatives always want to talk about this stuff. Leftists don't. And I think that that's really telling about who wants to brainwash the people that listen to them, and who wants the people that listen to them to think for themselves. Which side is a cult and which side isn't. All right, well, let's listen to exactly what Rose McGowan did say here, because I think it's actually quite compelling. Enough of my ranting.
Well, as some of you know, as some of you don't know, if you've heard my name or read anything on me in the media, I grew up in a cult, and it was a very famous cult called Children of God, and it gave me a superpower. It gave me the ability to see the control and the propaganda machine, especially in the US, for what it is and how it harms people, and how the left can harm people just as much as the right if they go very, very deep into it and ignore all other aspects of kind of reality in a way, and that you're serving a master that might not be serving you. And I always say I come in peace. I am not here to make people feel bad about their political choices, but I am here to say that you might be in a cult too if you don't know the signs. And I do believe Democrats most especially are in a deep cult that they really don't and know about and aren't really aware of. And I leave the Republicans alone more because I do respect people more that are like, this is what we are, this is what we're about, this is what we're against. Whereas I find that the Democrats are really pretty much almost against all the same things. They're against changing the world for the better. And they're for keeping a system in place that is for so few people and benefits so few, but they masquerade as the helpers. We would do this. The world would be perfect if only those Republicans would get out of the way. Well, okay, you've got control. So now what? What are you going to do to make the world better?
So I feel like she's got half of the puzzle put together now, right? She's
Well,
finally figured out that the Democrats are lying to their public about what they're trying to do.
she's weird. I don't really like.
Oh, I think she's crazy. Yeah, I do think she's crazy. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe she's just... See, I think it's very difficult...
She said she was raised in a cult.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's where I have sympathy with her. I think it's very difficult if you've been brainwashed by the Democrats your whole life to view Republicans in a positive way. I just think it's very, very difficult. It's sort of like... I don't know. I can't think of an analogy right now.
I don't know. She's weird. I don't really. She looks evil to me.
Yeah, well, I think she's a little bit messed up, right? I think she's had a lot of trauma in her life, and she's got like some kind of issues. But I'm a very optimistic person, and I see that she has learned that the Democrats are lying, right? She doesn't trust the Democrats. But I think the reason she doesn't trust Republicans is because she's been told her whole life that Republicans are lying to her. So if Republicans say, well, we want to build a wall to protect Americans from drug dealers and terrorists and stuff like that, but then the Democrats say, oh, no. Republicans are lying to you. What they really want is to stop Mexicans from coming into America because they're racist and they hate Mexicans. And Rose McGowan goes, I see. Okay. And then every time Republicans say something, we want to pass this legislation because of X reason, or we want to stop people from doing this because of X. And then the Democrats say, no. They're lying to you. They're lying to you. Their real thinking is that they're bigots. They hate women. They hate progress. See, you notice that she said there that Democrats will be just like Republicans. They say they want progress, but they really don't. Republicans, she just assumes Republicans tell you what they really think. They don't.
Understand. Those are an adult people. Adult, not like 10 years old, not 7 years old. And you believe whatever your party, your media tells you to believe. Like, can you just think for yourself for a second and don't believe everything you hear?
Well, I think it's very hard if you've grown up listening to the same lies for many years. And the fact that she recognized that Republicans do, in fact, tell people what they think, and she accepts that, I think that that's a great first step in recognizing that Republicans aren't actually as evil as the Democrats say that they are. And so I think she's a little bit more, but she's still saying that Republicans are in a cult and the Republicans don't want progress. That's absolutely not true. Republicans have never, ever said, as long as I've been alive, I've never heard any Republicans say that we don't want progress. That's a bizarre concept. Of course we want progress.
She mean that Democrats are very progressive,
Right,
and
right.
Republicans are like old-fashioned, who wants those traditional values and
Right, but the problem is the Republicans say we want to conserve traditional values. We're conservatives.
Yeah.
And Democrats will say, well, what they really mean by that is
What?
that
Why aren't we progressive? There's going to be transgender Republican, whatever, as the California governor. Why and we are not progressive?
exactly, yeah. Well, the Democrats will say
That's a hell of a progress right here.
the Democrats will say that the reason that Republicans want to maintain traditional values is they want to bring back slavery and they want to bring back Jim Crow laws and
You know who wants to
back in the
bring-
old days when they were racist.
Do you know who wants to bring back slavery? Democrats with their illegal immigrants who gonna work here for $5 an hour.
True. All right, darling. So this is the story of Rose McGowan's awakening. She's not fully there, but I am kind of impressed that somebody from a cult finally recognizes that the Democrats are in a cult. All right, shall we move on to the next story?
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren speaks out against her harsh treatment of January 6 protesters.
Yeah, can you believe that? So now we've got two Democrats sitting here starting to recognize.
3 months later. Wow. Thank you.
Well, we get two Democrats here. We got Rose McGowan and now we got Elizabeth Warren, and both of them are recognizing that the Democrats are flippin' evil. In this particular case, it's not about the cult, the left-wing cult, but it's about the left using the judicial system to punish their political enemies and to send a message and to threaten conservatives, right? If you protest, if you do something we don't like, we are going to put you in prison. This is what they do in third world dictatorships. This is what they do in fascist countries. If you disagree with a fascist dictator politically, he will put you in prison. This is what Putin does. This is what they do in China. This is what they do in North Korea.
Prison. Prison is for that pocket opposition. They will just kill you.
Yeah. But
They won't put you in prison.
well, sometimes they put you in prison. I mean, look at the guy that's in prison now on the hunger strike.
He is not a real opposition.
All right, Valeria, you're ruining my analogy here. I'm trying to say Democrats are bad. Just go with it. Just go with it. Gosh, okay. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.